Hi everyone, my name is Nick, and this week's plant of the week is Hoya carnosa Crimson Queen. Hoya carnosa itself is one of the most common species of Hoya on the market, and Crimson Queen is one of the many varieties that exist of Hoya carnosa. And I believe this one is the one I see most often when people are starting out their Hoya collection, so I thought this would be an excellent one to talk about today. And you might also see this listed as many other names. I've seen this as Hoya carnosa tricolor, I've seen it as Hoya carnosa strawberries and cream, probably referring to that pink coloration that you can see on these new leaves, as well as simply Hoya carnosa variegata, a variegated Hoya carnosa. But as there are many other types of variegated Hoya carnosa, we do need to get a little bit more specific, but I believe Hoya carnosa Crimson Queen is the most widely accepted name for this plant. This Hoya is native to Eastern Asia in countries like China, Vietnam, and Japan, as well as Australia. And this is a really easy plant to grow in the home. I feel like I say that about practically every plant that I talk about, but this one is really, really easy. There is good reason why Hoya carnosa is so common and prevalent. These prefer brighter light situations, so I might not necessarily recommend growing these right in your southern or western facing windows, as I find that they don't really love that bright, hot, intense light and heat. But I find pulled off just a few feet from those windows is the magic area for these plants. I grow most of my Hoyas, including this Hoya carnosa, just off of my southern facing window. In fact, my shelf in my bedroom, if you are at all familiar with the layout of my home, is basically where I keep 90% of my Hoyas, I would say, at least the ones that are very near and dear to my heart. But I would say that growing your Hoyas roughly 2 to 5 feet off of a very brightly lit window, you're gonna have some really good luck with these plants. If you have a north or east facing window, I think they would do phenomenally in those windows, but I don't really have many of those windows in my home, so I can't really speak on that care. But I have west and southern facing windows in my home, and those are bright. Those are very bright, and they can easily burn some of your plants. So I'm growing some of my larger leaved Hoyas in those windows because they can withstand that light. But some of these smaller leaved Hoyas, like this Hoya carnosa, I think they might burn a little bit, but I'm sure everyone has different experiences with that. In terms of the watering, you don't want to overwater or underwater your Hoyas. I think most people are going to talk about erring on underwatering, which is 100% true. You do want to err on underwatering, but if you go way too far on underwatering your Hoyas, that's when you're going to damage some of those roots and they're not going to recover very well. So if you've ever had a Hoya and you've had a few of the plants in the pot just like brown up and crisp away and just die for what you thought was no apparent reason, it was probably underwatering, because I have been guilty of that many times myself. But on the other end of the spectrum, overwatering, I would say you probably don't want to water most of your Hoyas, maybe not all of them, but most of them more than once a week. My Hoya carnosas, I'm probably watering roughly every 7 to 10 days. And if I am overwatering these, they are very quick to let you know, because these lower leaves inside the pot are going to turn yellow and fall off, and they might get kind of slimy and gross as they start to decompose, I guess, because they are just full of water, and these plants do not want extra water. So while I was saying they don't want to be overwatered, they definitely don't want to be underwatered. So just something to be a little bit mindful of. They really aren't that hard to take care of, but as I said, if you just go way too far in the underwatering, you are going to lose some of the plants in these pots. I am not a heavy feeder with my Hoyas. I'm going to be honest and say I am not like an expert fertilizer whatsoever. I really don't know that much about fertilizing. That is something for me to learn in the future. But I'm a very light feeder with my Hoyas. I'm really only feeding them maybe once a month, maybe every 2 months, a very light fertilizer. I use organic fertilizer in my home because that's what I have, but you can use synthetic. I think there's nothing wrong with that. But if you are using synthetic fertilizer, just be sure to cut the directed amount in half. So if it says use 1 tablespoon for a gallon, use half a tablespoon, just to be sure you're not going to over fertilize your plants, because that can be an issue. These plants do flower. I've actually never had my Hoya carnosa Crimson Queens flower for me, but they will flower. They do need to have a little bit more age to them. I typically hear that you need to have your Hoyas for at least 1, but preferably 2 or 3 years in prime conditions for them to bloom. But I have been shocked with some of my other Hoyas in my home that might bloom a little bit easier after just a couple of months of having them under my care. But this one, very reliable grower. Don't expect flowers anytime soon, but once you do have this plant for a couple of years, I think it will be a very active bloomer for you. As for the pests, I definitely have mealybug problems with my Hoya carnosas. Mealybugs are an issue with practically all of my Hoyas, and anything related to Hoyas, the mealybugs really seem to enjoy them. They really enjoy hiding in the crevices of where the leaves petiole meets the main stem, but I just use a Q-tip and I dab it with some rubbing alcohol and I will just go and clean them out. It's a really easy way to do it, but I have found some juicy mealybugs on my Hoyas if I have not paid too much mind to them. But as these are very succulent plants, the mealybugs don't really seem to do any damage. They really just seem to be a nuisance. I'm sure you can get to the point of a mealybug infestation really wreaking havoc on your Hoyas, but in my home, it really hasn't gotten to that point yet. So actually, I take that back. My Hoya Bella was annihilated by mealybugs, and I had no idea what was going on, and it was disgusting. But my Hoya carnosa have not been an issue as far as that goes. Is there anything else I need to talk about for this plant? No, I think that's where I'm going to cut it off today. So thank you guys so much for joining me today to talk about Hoya carnosa Crimson Queen. There are so many varieties of Hoya carnosa out there, so I'm sure you could apply this care to many other varieties today, but I just did want to focus on this one variety today. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you grow this plant in your home as well, please leave your own care tips in the comments. Follow me on Instagram at Philly Foliage, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in my next video. Have a great time!